with by Francois in South Africa. Thanks, Francois. Francois Lubbe is an action coach, and is it okay? I think you've reached a very significant status in the community. I like to call you a bit of a master coach because of your innovation and some of the ideas that you're really leading the way in South Africa in the coaching world. So welcome, Francois.
Thank you,
And
Nani.
we have on the other end of the world, Lawry Scandar in Brisbane, Australia. And Lawry, psychology background, but mostly been focused on executive and corporate and business coaching, consulting over, we won't go into how many decades.
Please.
So, I think we're all a similar vintage here. So we a lot of experience that we can instill and share with coaches. Because our journeys have been so different, but sometimes so similar. Lawry's developed a number of programs, and you, Francois, have developed some unique programs. I've developed my programs, AccuMatch, and so forth. What is it about some of these things that maybe I'll point it to you, Francois, and talk about your recent development. I think you call it the three M's. Is that right?
hmm
What are the
Yeah,
M's? Yeah.
yeah. I think just to bring that in context, yes, I've been with Action Coach now more than 12 years. After corporate, and I think part of what we teach our clients is that also to develop a uniqueness. What makes you stand out. In the market. And I think as a coach, how is it that I have used let's say the action coach as part of my context, because I think it's very, very powerful in terms of the strategies and the success principles that are there. And I think over the years I've really then developed it. So what does it mean for me? And I came up with three, what I call the triple M mastery model. And the three M's is it is the meaning that you give things. So we have to make discover actually our resourcefulness. And I think that's one of the places where we as people are actually getting stuck, not because of what happened, but what is still happening, perhaps, and the meaning that we give things, either in theory or not. So that's the one area that I think is a gateway towards the results, because ultimately it's about the results that we want to create for people in their business and in their lives. The second M is measurement. So what do you use as measurement, and to raise your focus. So what typical critical drivers of performance. And I mean, there's a lot of things that drive performance. I mean, through AccuMatch, for instance, the behavioral drivers. And what drive behavior? Because ultimately behavior drives the results. And the other M is the methodology. How do you act? How do you actually act purposeful and powerful? And business owners, I have found, I mean, they work hard, but what if they actually try to solve the wrong problems? And I think the methodology part is also actually that importance to distinguish between solving the symptoms or the problems.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, so that's in short. It's about you want to drive higher quality of life. What is it that people want in their business and life? And I believe it is to unlock that possibility, because I think most people actually perform only at a fraction of their potential.
Mm. So
Brilliant.
there is a few things in that, and I'll pass it over to Laurie in a minute. But one of the things that I'm hearing is, Francois, you've been doing this for 12 years, and we often have to remind coaches that your style, your flair, your methodology is not going to show up in the first 1 or 2 years of you starting your coaching practice. And then you start, you really just got to do the basics, right? And
Yeah.
and the exciting thing is that journey that you've gone on, Lawry's gone on, I've gone on, that after some time you start to come up with techniques and methods, and you start to make it your own. Your style comes out, your flair comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Lawry, I think
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. I mean, so I love, you know, how shall I say, experiences, and through living life. That's where I feel, actually, how do you then learn from life, and how do you apply it? And that's what I love. I mean, I think there's yes, yeah. I believe it's got a strong blend between the transformational and the transactional. I just mentioned to Lawry, that the dream to live to stay for 1 year in the Kruger Park, and I mean we're going there often, and because I learn so much from nature, and from learn from nature and how to apply that in business. And so I think it's also important to really follow your passion, and how do you actually blend that into who you are, so that and what you believe in, and how do you then so convey that, let's say, that message, or through that asking the questions to your clients, to so that they predict the results that are important to them.
Yeah, I apart from going to carry your bags when you do your year in Kruger National Park, like, forget the bags. We'll just walk and do things.
So you just come in, yeah.
We just come. What I love about what you've said, Francois, and having known you through the Acumatch process for a little bit of time now, what I love is that you hit something that resonates strongly with me. Let's start with one of the last things you said. And in my words, yes, you can give people a framework, a methodology, a program, a system. But unless, as a coach or as a consultant, which is a conversation we've had in the past about where are you on this continuum, unless you know how to bring that to life for your clients, it's just a theoretical, nice thing. Go read a book,
Yes.
But
yes.
the ability to bring to life something that you then frame in a model, make it yours, and you have some passion with it. That's what really creates a platform for a client to get it, and to feel it, and to experience it. And what I also like then is that you put together something that your 3 M's. First of all, if I use my version of your 3 M's, it'd be mindset. What's your mindset, right? So what's the meaning you're giving to what's happening for you in your business? Who are you in your business? What role do you play? And are you limiting yourself in that role? Often as coaches, we see people who, that their problem is, they're limiting themselves without recognizing it. So they point the finger. Something's wrong, fix my methodology, or it's my team, or it's my suppliers, or what have you. Well, look in the mirror. Let's start there. And then we talk about this really perfect thing that a lot of people don't like, measurement. Measurement is one of the key indicators of, regardless of size, an organization's culture. It sends a signal about what is deemed important. So be careful what you measure. Are you measuring what really is going to drive your business, or are you staying within a standard framework of KPIs that just actually keeps you within a box? And how does that go with your mindset? Does it satisfy your self-limiting? And then, of course, the methodology. Some people bring people like the 3 of us in, come fix my methodology, when the first 2 M's are an issue. So I think you've got a really, really tight package there.
Yeah, and I think each of them, is a gateway to somehow I have discovered over the years that, although all of those areas are critically important in my view, it is also important what is the context of where the person is, and also in terms of the business context as well. But there's at least one of them, they are not, let's say, acting in an empowering way, maybe perhaps stuck there and don't even know But I mean, and I think then how to unlock that. It is that you start seeing the new possibilities for yourself, for your business, and you change. It's like finding those blind spots as well, so that they can't see by themselves. And I think this is where I have found that, and I have actually, in terms of the measurements, this is the AccuMatch, the behavioral measurements is fitting in for me there. And that is something that I think is quite often overlooked, and thinking only about the hard measurements, but the hard measurements, these are normally the results, and what are the critical drivers, but what are also the critical behavioral drivers, because the behaviors leads to the to the results. And the more we actually understand that, and what's going on in the life of the business owner, then you start discovering new pathways.
Yeah, really.
Discovery is key. Yeah.
Really insightful. The image that went to mind, Francois, was, if you had a job to do, I'm just thinking through this. If you had a job to do that was best done with a hammer, okay, so the hammer was the best tool. It still comes down to the person wielding that hammer. How well do they hit the nail with that? Are they just flimsy, not interested, or are they whacking it too hard, right? And damaging a lot of other things around that, so that behavior aspect is really powerful regardless of having the right tool, so the tool is only a small part of it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also pertinent when it comes to, sorry, Francois, but I was just going to say, what I think it's pertinent when it comes to what's been happening for businesses over the last 12 months. One hell of a time for a lot of businesses, If I hear the word unprecedented at the end, I'll go mad. I had hair before this year. You realize this, right? So
that's unprecedented.
Unprecedented. One of the issues here is, how then do businesses innovate? And what is it? If you take your 3 M's, as you're talking about, it's not one or the other. This is a gateway. This is an opening discovery process where you integrate what it is to talk about the 3 M's and to work them through for yourself as a business owner. It's integrated. That's where the discoveries come. So at some point, how does a business recognize that actually it's time to put the hammer down and create something else? And part of that might be, we need to start measuring something else that we keep saying is important, but we're not measuring. And it may well be, how do my team engage with clients? It's like behavior. It might be methodology. We don't know until you discover. And I think that's a really critical thing for a lot of coaches who, I know some coaches work off a formula. Some work off, I don't know, has the sun risen today? And if it has, I'll do whatever. But if you have a process, then even as a coach, is your process allowing that discovery rather than just the personal discovery? Are you taking them on a journey that they will discover, but you are creating the pathway for? Yeah, that's something that the coaches cannot answer how they're doing that. They may be stuck with the hammer.
It's like baking a cake. I mean, you don't give them the cake and say, come and enjoy the cake. It's like you don't give them the recipe as well, but it is to discover the recipe through your questions that you're asking. And then, yes, you as a coach, you have your input as well, so that they ultimately bake that cake, that is then, representing the results, just using that as an analogy. But I mean, you're mentioning about the last 12 months, and I think some great things that I think perhaps probably would have been discovered if it wasn't, for instance, the lockdown. I mean, I think something quite critical that is discovered is that the realization that the only certainty there is uncertainty. And I think your relationship with uncertainty play a big role in how do you actually equipping yourself, and the meaning that you give to things either gonna be, how you respond to it is something that I have found is where a lot of people are actually stuck because they actually want certainty. They were used to, listen, this is my roadmap, and if you do number 1, 2, 3, and 4, then you will get the result. Suddenly it doesn't work like that. So I believe it is, how do you navigate through the uncertainty is, yes, there's the place for that roadmap. So there's truth in that. So you have to deal with the paradoxes. So there's a truth in having a roadmap, but there's also the truth in having the navigation instrument and play the ball, as it lies. Actually, as the obstacles show up. And a lot of business owners, I think, struggle with that because they were used to, well, if I do this and this and this, then I'm fairly sure I'll have the result.
And we know why that happens for people, because the roadmaps that we all develop, our internal methodologies, what we believe is right, has usually worked in some way for us. The last 12 months has challenged that in varying ways, from minor to cataclysmic for different businesses. We know that. Yeah. So it reinforces this thing that we often talk about with the AccuMatch people, that it's so context driven. The map is great for the journey. So the question is it the same journey still? Is it the same journey? And I think for a lot of businesses that say it's the same journey because it has been like this for the last 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And I think the three of us have been dealing and deal with people who've been in business successfully, in big inverted commas, for decades in some cases. Then the big question, why should I change, has been successful? Well, the world is changing. The world, in terms of your second M, is now asking for measurements of different things. We've actually just had a fourth player join us. The dog has just joined us. He said, I want out of here. This is too much for me. So I think that's really quite powerful as well, because it's, you talk about, you don't give them the cake, here it is. But part of this is also, as a coach and as a consultant, how do you help a client get a lust for cake, first of all? And it might not be the cake that they've had before, a lust for a different cake. Well, this is taking my head into all sorts of places.
Guys, what I'm hearing is, prior to the COVID situation, we may have had a lot of businesses that were successful because there were the good times, the things were going okay. And, my language in that is sometimes they're successful despite themselves, but because the economy is great, they're doing great, But what COVID is I'm hearing has brought in is this challenge, Now you've actually got to make it work right. You can't just slap things together and throw out a cake and people are lining up anyway because cakes are in demand. You got to actually make a nice cake, something that's really has your heart, your soul, your passion, and you love making it, and then love receiving it. So there's just so much that's happened through that period. And also, I have a question back to you, Francois, around the Triple M. It sounds to me like it's not, you can't jump to methodology before you've done the previous two. You really start with meaning first as the first step before you progress to the other two.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, it is like sometimes I refer to baking the cake. I mean, sometimes you can actually mix the ingredients or differently, and I think what is definitely not a sequential thing. It is an integrated. It is integrated, and yes, maybe I'm doing it on a the unconscious competence level. By how to integrate it, but I mean, it's so integrated you can't actually separate it. But both are true. I can separate it, but it is also integrated, and I think that is the power of it. is because it is not okay. Now I go there. Now I go there. Sometimes it actually could start at any place, but it doesn't have to be in sequence. So I think it's very much the power of it. It is that. Well, I believe I'm the secret ingredient in it, of course, because it was developed through my brain. And if I give it to someone else, they probably gonna be struggle if they haven't used it. Yes, they will find a lot of value in it, but I mean, so in terms of the real power of it is how to integrate it in that I think is key. Can't really, yeah,
Right.
it's
So your experience with it has
yes,
allowed you
yes,
to
yes,
recognize
yeah,
where
yeah,
you need to start
yeah.
because of you built it and you
And it is
practiced it.
enriched all the time. It's enriched all the time. That how you enriching. So they have certain fundamental principles. I mean, on the methodology side, the action coach intellectual property, for instance, play a very strong aspect specifically in the in the methodology part. That and the measurement. But as I said, it is transformational and transactional. Really, that blend, and I feel that is my strength as a coach of how do we actually show up in both, because I think both are important. And when you compare it with a game, business is that 90% of the game is actually to do the basics brilliantly. And I think it is what are the basics that that we should start with and do that brilliantly, that you actually move a long way in terms of the the results that you are creating.
Awesome. So it's customized. We talk often about where is the biggest fire that you need to put out first. So your approach might be to look at what needs to be dealt with and start there, but still come back and address all of the different areas because they all have to work together eventually. Otherwise, the cake won't rise, right?
Yeah. I think another aspect is the, let's say, the time continuum, your past, your present, and your future. And I think that's always very intriguing and important to actually where to explore, because sometimes actually the people are stuck in the past, and this is where the meaning part plays a huge role. Is that you have to unlock that, because I mean sometimes you are jailed by your past, not because of what happened. It is that it's not about the facts, but about what the stories that you made of.
Yeah.
And that's the meaning part, and how to actually reframe that, so that you unlock yourself there, in terms of and then you start seeing new possibilities. Then what is the methodology then to use to make it real? And this is where the strategies and the tools playing a role, and then how will you measure progress? I mean, that is on the most basic level, and that in itself is already very powerful to actually to move people forward. We're not looking for magic solutions. Actually, always how to progress.
I know Lawry and I talked a little bit about meaning. But what just hit me is, as people listen to this recording, they're going to give it meaning. Right? There's a phrase that that get used sometimes. We are meaning makers. We look at everything and we give it a meaning. We have expectations, we have rules. And Lawry, you've done a lot of work in that area, right? So
I mean, it's the reality. I mean, that ultimately we can talk about business structures, business processes, business drivers, and then unfortunately or fortunately, do I say it like that, there's one common denominator, the human brain, in amongst it, the business owner or the key business influencer. And yeah, the brain is a meaning making machine. to be able to enact anything, to put anything into action behaviorally, the brain somehow has to formulate some meaning for that activity, that task, that thought. And as you say, you know, a lot of people appear to be stuck in the past. It's a broad statement, I know, but it's not necessarily about something bad happened. It could actually be a whole lot of really good stuff has happened, and therefore the meaning is don't change.
And there might be a
And yet
measure.
society is saying you've got to change.
Yeah, there might be a measure. Sorry to interrupt, but that just hit me. There's a measure to the meaning. You know, is it an important? Is the meaning then important to me, or is the meaning not important? You know,
yeah, important enough to actually enact, to put some mental and physical energy into doing something with it.
Yes.
And it's not. You know, I always have this rock on my desk. It probably will show backwards. Right? Oh no, you can see the meaning of life is to give life meaning. It's about that. That really, you can replace that with one word: choice. Now I have that staring at me in the face every day I'm here, and it is about how does a coach, how does a business owner formulate meaning? How do you give meaning to experience what's happening in my business now? What happened 12 months ago? And yes, we can talk about COVID, but there's a lot of COVIDs. Like here in Australia, we've had bushfires, droughts, COVID. Across the world, there's been global financial crisis, and we all know there are a lot of people who have still not come out of that cleanly. You know? So in terms of big drivers, for some little person in a business, oh, how is this affecting me? No, I just keep going with what I'm doing. It's been successful. The way you give that meaning may be your problem, or it could be your gateway, your opening, if you're prepared to reframe it, as you say, which is the role of the coach, is to give that platform to help that shift in thinking, to add another opportunity, to actually put another, to tweak the roadmap. Not necessarily change it. It might be just, let's just tweak it a little bit, because you know, these few roads, well, they don't go where they used to go anymore. You need a detour.
What if you did the opposite type of question? What
I mean, and that detour can actually take you to places you haven't been before, but I mean, it's total new scenery and new level of joy and results that you haven't seen before. And I think that is what excites me about, you know, so, you know, as you say, that little tweak, but I mean, it is like, you know, maybe you're on this highway, but now you're going off-road. And where will that take you? It'll take you to a place you haven't been before. You haven't even imagined that. And I think that is quite exciting that that is, you know, that's available. It is available for people to go there, you know, out of your comfort zone.
And hence, that's why I say you need to help a client develop the lust for this new shape or new look cake. Because without that lust, I've used that word really strongly. It's like, why would I?
Yes. Yeah.
Why would I? Yeah. Because the
story. The hunger must be there. Yeah.
The hunger must be there in some way.
Yeah.
Because it's energy expended. Why would I spend energy? You know, I talk about goat tracks, byways, and highways. Why would I get a machete and chop a new pathway here when I've had this one for 20 years, 30 years?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, gents, you know, looking at the time, and we're getting close to our time here. So, you know, maybe wrapping up a little bit. What would you leave people with, Lawry?
I think pretty much the summary is really powerful. So for people who would watch this, it's primarily going to be business people and coaches. The 3 M's, integrating them, I think is very powerful. So that's Francois' framework. There are a lot of frameworks, of course, but how to bring that to life for a client is the challenge for any coach. And I think, as you said, if you can put your own experience and passion to it, to make sense of it, because as you said, Francois, your brain came up with this framework. And our brains do all of this, and that's how it works. To help a client get to that point of recognizing that there is something that they can strive for. There is, as you say, some excitement and joy and freedom in taking and creating a detour. And then sometimes you do need a bit of I use the word structured loosely, a structured methodology to get there. You have the 3 M's. It gives people something to anchor their process towards. I think that from a coach's point of view, to develop their own versions of that would be really powerful. Because another conversation I would love to have with you, 3 of us maybe, another one, so I'm setting us up for another one, is what is it that you have seen, and what is it as a coach that you have seen and are forecasting you will see that has actually inspired you to do just that, to create this?
Yeah. No, that's a story in its own.
I have no doubt.
I'd love to have that conversation. Yeah, no, for sure.
Francois,
So
what are
that's
the
my
top
take.
things that you would like to leave people with today?
Yeah, I think I referred to it quickly, but I think it's important to always take context into consideration. What is we're talking about this and the model itself, but what is the context of the person, where he or she is, in his life, is very important. The context of the business. So always thinking about, I think, the context and what is then within that context. What do you, what needs to be focused on? I think that's the one. And then secondly, is that I think sometimes we as coaches tend to always looking for big breakthroughs, but really the results are, so yes, that's important, but what are the, to master the basics? And I think finding what are the basics that we have to master. And I think that we're talking about is really basics. I mean, it's not rocket science, but to master that, to produce the results. That would be my final message.
Nice, thank you. And I guess I need to throw one in here, and it just makes me think. You brought up AccuMatch a few times, and I think that the AccuMatch map gives you as a coach, anybody as a coach, an insight as to sometimes where to start. I'm thinking the global versus detailed client you would start in a different place with your 3Ms with a detail person, building them towards their vision and their goals, whereas a global person, you got to start at that end and maybe work with the meaning. And so it's customized, but the insight you get from the map allows you to know where to start, know your client, know their brain, I guess, how their brain is going to receive things.
Yeah.
Really cool. Well, guys, it sounds like we have to do this again.
Yeah, no.
And that's a good problem to have. So I look forward to us being able to put this together once more. And follow us, guys, follow the sequences. There's a lot of value from all these amazing coaches. Francois, thank you, and have a good evening. Lawry, enjoy your day. And
thank you, and great to see you after so long, Francois. It's been always a pleasure to and insightful to have these sort of chats with you.
Likewise, thank you very much for the opportunity, and have a great day. I'm gonna go. I think it is 11 at night here, so time to go to bed and wake up the next morning. So looking forward to to the next session, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Go well.
Take a detour to bed. Take a detour.
I'm actually now so energized. I don't know. I won't be able to sleep. So, so thank you very much for this as well.